What is going on, guys? So we are going to get into the thick of what you guys have been waiting for, and that is how I set up and structure my Facebook ad campaigns to get consistent results. Now, I really do want to emphasize two key things. One, it doesn't matter how good or how effective this targeting and our campaign structure is if you don't have a good offer and you don't know your audience, right? Those two things are very, very important. I'm going to go through actually a couple examples after I map out and show you how it is that I structure the campaigns so that you can get a good idea of what that really means. Now, I really only use ABO campaign structure for the most part. A lot of people can scale in ABO, which is whenever you have your ad set be where the budget's controlled instead of the overall campaign. Campaign budget optimization is still effective whenever you are looking to scale and have winners, but you need to be able to identify the winners first, so that's where I want to start. So you have effectively three parts to your campaign. You have the campaign, and then this is where you set up a couple of different things. So your objective. So are you going to be doing leads, website sales, calls, so on, so forth. Realistically speaking, you're really going to be doing leads and website sales more than anything. That is where 99% of our clients live. The other thing might be, awareness or engagement. If you are trying to run campaigns to get brand awareness for a new business or something like that so that you can build a following less expensively. Once you are done figuring out what your objective is, so say for instance, again, you're predominantly more than likely going to be using leads or website sales, you move on to your ad set, which is really where you are setting up your targeting. And this is where you want to have some of the things that we have already talked about in other videos in identifying your core target audience, right? So that's going to be things like your age, demographics, their sex, their geography. So what physical area are you targeting, whether it's like a states, countries, what have you, that type of stuff. And then you also have the ability to do detailed targeting, which is going to be things like what are their interests, right? So it might be insurance, it might be parents, doctors. There's all these different things that you have the ability to target, whether it's an interest, a field of study, a job title, big life events. Like you can target parents of kids ages 0 to 12 months, 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12, so on and so forth. So those are really important things if, for instance, say you run a baby clothes store and you're selling products online, right? You would ideally want to go for people like that, or maybe people who are interested in, strollers, or what's that stuff called? I'm trying to think. Like the fake breast milk that you would give to a baby if for whatever reason that you can't breastfeed, right? So formula, things like that, right? You have the ability to find a lot of these things in detailed targeting and use that to your advantage. Now, the core thing that I want to show you, and I'll get into the example of this once we hop on Loom, but say for instance, you are selling luxury goods, right? You want to also target things similar to which that type of person would also likely enjoy, right? So if you're selling, luxury watch cases, right? You might want to target people interested in luxury watches or luxury jewelry, right? These are very natural things to consider. and you want to be able to pinpoint them in other areas that they might have a associated focus or associated interest, so that you can drive down costs, because some interests are a lot more expensive to target than others, just because of how much more accurate they are to what it is that you're really trying to target, right? Now, there's a couple of things in ad set or your targeting in general that you want to pay attention to. I always turn off detailed targeting expansion, which is a little checkbox underneath where you put your detailed targeting interests in, that will automatically expand the people that you're targeting based off of finding better people. I almost always turn that off, and anytime that you make an edit to your campaign at all, whether it's in your ad set, the campaign, anything, it will very likely automatically turn detailed targeting expansion on. So make sure that whenever you're making adjustments to your ads in any way, shape, or form, that you go ahead and turn that back off, because it will automatically keep turning it on. Now, again, that's my preference. That's what I do. That's what is a part of me getting the results that I do, because then it's not wasting money trying to find people it thinks might like it better. I would wait until you find a winning audience, and then that performance starts to taper off before turning that on. So that's a little bit of word of wisdom there for you. And this is going to be the really important part, which is the actual ad itself. And this is going to be where you have your copy, your primary text, your headline, your CTA, which is your call to action, your creative. That's either going to be a picture or a video. And then if you are doing predominantly Facebook placements, you do have the ability to put what's called a description, so that way, you have more stuff that you can put in if you so choose. Now, the one thing with ads, as of the last, call it 8 months, that a lot of these AI tools have been being introduced to Facebook Ads Manager and Facebook overall, is that it will automatically add enhancements to your copy or to your creative, okay? Bearing that in mind, I really truly would avoid using those enhancements, again, until you have creative fatigue or until you have some sort of evidence showing that your higher performing ads are no longer performing. Once it finds what optimizations improve the performance, then go ahead and turn those on. But again, I really don't recommend adding in too many variables, especially when you're first starting, because then you're not going to understand what to watch out for, which is going to be the foundations of your ad: the creative, the copy, and the offer. Okay. So as far as the creative, I generally recommend for most service-based businesses to just use graphics or pictures, because so long as your offer is very clear, you really don't need something super crazy. We're working with a bunch of different service-based businesses that do different things, such as like moving companies or professional services like attorneys and accountants, you name it. A lot of the time, you really truly want to focus on just a graphic, because so long as your offer is clearly stated, there's no need to have a video. You have to remember, people are going on Reels and TikTok and Snapchat, so many other short form video content platforms now, where they're watching 1 or 2 seconds of a video and then just skipping by it. So if you're not actively getting your message across in that 1 to 2 seconds, it's going to be very, very hard for you to have a high converting ad, which you want a high converting ad for 2 reasons. 1, if it's high converting, you're probably making more money. But 2, if you have a high converting ad and you constantly have the ability to spend more and more money on this ad, you'll get more data faster, meaning it will learn quicker. If it learns quicker, you will have better quality conversions as you continue to get more data. You gotta remember, Facebook has a 7-day attribution window, which means it takes the results from the last 7 days to base its improvements off of. The more data you can cram into that 7-day window, the more likely you are to get better and better results. So, super, super important there. The one other thing that I will say that you probably can pay attention to, or at least should pay attention to here, at the ad level, this eraser is garbage. You want to pay attention to your tracking settings. So you actually put your pixel on during the ad set where you're telling the campaign what constitutes a conversion event here, right? So this is probably going to be a lead or a purchase that you want to pay attention to. You will be able to confirm what's being tracked on the actual ad in and of itself. So this is the core setup of what you're going to be having to deal with in each part of your Facebook campaign. Now, what I will tell you is, like I said before, I like to set the budget at the ad set level because that gives us a lot better control. If you set it at the campaign level, what it does is then, say for instance, you put $50 a day here instead of here, right? That means that for every ad set that you have in your campaign, you're only ever going to spend $50. Actually, you know what, I'm going to change this. Call it $60, right? Say for instance, there's 3 audiences that I want to test my offer to, and they're distinctly different. Well, if you set it up in the ad set, you can do $20 for each, right? And see which ones are high performing at a smaller budget. Whereas if you set it here, you might have one ad set get $45, another one $5, and another one $10. And this can change on a daily basis. However, what ends up happening more often than not is the one that gets the bulk of the spend will continually get the bulk of the data. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to get sales, right? It might be good to do campaign if you're just starting out as far as campaign budget optimization if you don't know what your cost per conversion is. However, there are so many markets out there where you should be able to get a rather quick determination as far as like what an average customer acquisition cost is for price points similar to what you're offering. So say for instance, you're an accounting firm, might cost you $120 on average to get a new client, right? Okay, awesome. If you know that, then that means that if you want one new customer a day, you need to be willing to spend $120 at any point in here, right? You might get it for less on a particular ad set or a particular ad. You might get it after spending the entire day's budget and it's just a fluke. It doesn't really matter, but you need to know what your actual customer acquisition cost is, cost per acquisition, so that way you for sure can without a shadow of a doubt say, okay, if I spend X, I'm likely to get Y on a daily basis. If you don't know what your cost per conversion is, you need to figure that out immediately because you're going to be spending money to figure that out until you figure it out, okay? You need to have that be consistent because what you don't want is one day you get a customer for $20 and the next day you get it for $160 and then the next day you get it for $80, right? That's way too volatile. You need to be able to lock that in to get some sort of consistency so you can make this experiment into a machine to constantly give you new business. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna hop in front of my computer on Loom, go through 2 ads managers really quickly so that you can see A, how we set this up for a lead-based company, and B, how we set it up for an e-commerce-based company. Alrighty guys, so we are currently looking at the ads manager for an e-commerce based business. You can see we're spending about $550 a day here, and we have one CBO set up compared to the original setup with the interest targeting being ABO. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and pop in here real quick and let's break down a little bit of the results. So far this month, February 1st, 2025 through February 10th, we're doing about 30K at a 7X return and spend about $4,000 over the course of that time frame. Over the last 30 days, 6.41X return, spent 11 grand, made $71,000. So, you know, guys, clearly this does work. And based off of the structure, you can see ABO tends to do a little bit better to prove your offer. Once you do CBO, you have a little bit of variability, even though they do have a very similar amount of purchases and a very similar amount of spend. You can see here nearly twice as much revenue and a slightly, call it, what's that, $25 less. So call it about a 12, 14% reduction in customer acquisition costs. Now, if you remember what I was saying over on the whiteboard, that you really want to focus on figuring out what your customer acquisition cost is. Spending $550 might get us 2 purchases in a day, and for a high ticket product at the low end, $700 per product, you're still looking at a pretty sizable return, especially over time. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and break down the interest here. And we will revisit what I was saying on the ad set basis. This is for a high ticket artificial plant product store. And like I said, low end is about a $700 purchase, $700 product. High end is about a $2,000 product, right? So bearing that in mind, you got to spend money to make money. And because of that, we want to take a look at things that people would have interest in at that price point for a product like this. So you can see here, we're not really targeting people interested in plants with the exception of one. $65,000 in revenue just from this one campaign. The bulk of the results, though, being from the last 30 days. And because of that, we can kind of bank on what's working best. So luxury retailers is going to be one that works really, really well. And, we're targeting people who like Balenciaga, Burberry, Chanel, Dior, Fendi, Gucci, Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Prada, Versace, household income, and then also are interested in plants. You use this as the final kind of qualifier because we know that the bulk of these people are also probably interested in the luxury products first and foremost. Now, if we go and look at, say, this one, design income plants, interior design, income, plants. You want to use what your actual focus is as a narrowing tool, not a bullseye of a target, because we did this before and it did not work very well. But if you start focusing on things that are more broadly applicable to what the actual product that you're trying to offer is or the price point that it plays in, you're going to have a much easier time getting the results that you want. Now, if we look at the broad CBO structure, you can see here, just US broad, and it's at a much lower return. You can do this, it will get you somewhere, but it won't get you very far, very fast. And it's all of the same copy and creative from the other campaign because we found it to work. Now, given these are the winners over the last 30 days, if we look at maximum, you can see that a lot of them really didn't get traction. So call it 120, 260, 300, call it $500 spent here to not get a single result. And that's the name of the game. Advertising is experimenting. And with any experiment that follows a scientific method, you have to have a hypothesis. The first hypothesis in any advertising campaign must always be, what can my customer acquisition cost be when I set up the experiment this way, right? And that's going to be your structure. And that is going to be your daily budget. That is going to be the really important stuff like your creative, your copy, and your offer. We have videos on each of those things specifically. The thing that I want to really reinforce is that your customer acquisition cost for a $7 product is likely going to be very different by comparison to that of a product costing $1,000. So you need to see where you optimize your customer acquisition costs so that you can be your most profitable. And that is why I like to have campaigns set up ABO first, because you can narrow down which audiences are most effective at different price points. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and get into actually, I'm just going to say move. And this is going to be for a moving company here in Arizona. You can see here that it is very simplistically set up. So far this month, 8 leads. Moving services can cost anywhere from $500 to $10,000. I know that we've had 3 closes so far this month, and we have averaged, I believe it was $6,800 in revenue after spending $252.29. What's the rough return on that? It's a 26x return just from running these ads. Right now, given this is a much more simplistic setup, we have one audience, local moves and corporate moves, and we're testing 3 different variations of the ads to see which ones can do best. You can see that in the offer itself, very simple. Save $50 on your next move, only 24-hour lead time. And then you have the reviews. listed from Google, the logo, and how you actually make someone's life easier, right? So whenever people are moving, usually one of the big stresses is the move in and of itself, right? So moving soon, let move in and remove and take the stress of relocating off of you. Just sit back and relax while we help you with junk removal, local moves, long distance moves, commercial moves, and more. 176 5-star Google reviews and over 1,200 successful jobs completed in 2024. Get your free quote within the next 24 hours when you submit info below, right? So you have the ability to make people's lives easier, and you want that dream expected outcome to be the thing that you are selling the most. And if you can incentivize them beyond that, say, for instance, with this $50 savings, really easy way to do that. Now, I have other videos for effective copywriting, what makes a creative good. You can see some of the elements here, right? So the reviews and the social proof. Save $50. People like to save money right now because people don't have a lot of it. Only 24-hour lead time. There's a lot of people who plan last minute, right? So there's so many different things that make this effective offer because of the fact that it has a lot of dream outcomes for those that plan and also those that don't. So with that being said, that is how we set up the ads both for e-com and leads. I'm going to show you in a different video how I would set one up from scratch for each if you are in a brand new ad account with no data, because obviously it's easy to figure out what looks good when you already have data. However, it can be a little confusing and certainly not the easiest thing if you are starting from scratch. So I'll see you guys in another video and hope you found this helpful.